Hello, everybody. This is your boy Ken, aka MrGentleman, and I am the host of MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. If you are enjoying this show, you should also check out the Premier Voice Podcast, hosted by myself, Aaron Kintok Sands, the Star Rider Rod, and Long Live the Chief Mighty Mal, where we discuss many topics within the culture, from music, love, relationships, sex, politics, and many more. We could make you laugh, but the show could also get a little raunchy and may not be for everybody. But if you're willing to take that risk, check out the Premier Voice Podcast every Wednesdays, a part of the Premier Powerverse. Other shows you could check out on the Premier Powerverse is King Talk with Aaron Sands, hosted by Aaron King Talk Sands every Friday at 12 p.m. Star Time Podcast hosted by the Star Rider Rod every Monday at 12 p.m. And Welcome to the Trilogy hosted by Long Live the Chief Mighty Mel every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Listen and support on every show in the Premier Powerverse. Thank you for listening to this message and enjoy the show. You are now listening to MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Chill! Hello, everybody. This is your boy Ken, aka MrGentleman, one-fourth of the Premier Voice Podcast, and your host of MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. And welcome to another new episode of MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Hope all is well. First thing first, Happy New Year to everybody. This is the first episode of MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast in the year 2025. And I hope 2025 is treating you good so far. And today is a very, very special day. Today is the 6th-year anniversary of MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. We was born today on January 20th, 2019. And if anybody would have told me if I ever would go to start a podcast, let alone have this podcast show for 6 years, I would not believe you. And as you already know, this journey had not been an easy one. We had many ups and downs, been times that I just wanted to give up altogether. But I just had to really say thank you to everybody, to the listeners, for making me want to keep going doing the show. Because honestly, if it wasn't for y'all, for the encouragement, for believing in me and my vision, this show would not went as far as it did. And for that, I just want to say thank you to everybody who supported me from the beginning, who supported me down the line, and who is still supporting me now. It really means a lot, and I just want to say thank you. And also thank you to every guest who came on the show to share their stories and trusted me to want to share their story to the world. I just want to say thank you to all the guests. Thank you to every listener. If you haven't listened, share, told a friend, got me on the charts, and this has supported me in some kind of way. I just want to say thank you, and it really, really means a lot. And thank you for believing in me and make sure that I never give up. You know, it's just really been a journey, and I appreciate each and every one of y'all, and appreciate everybody who told me that this show was that inspired them and helped them in some kind of way. I thank you, man. It really means a lot, and I thank you. So as you already know, on the anniversary episode of MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast, we talk about the journey from the beginning to where we're at now. And we talk about everything. We also have anniversary messages that we're all going to listen to. And thank you, everybody who took the time to send in an anniversary message, because y'all didn't have to do it, but if y'all did, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And just like y'all, I will listen to the anniversary message live on the air. I had not listened to any of them yet, but thank you, and let's continue to go on this journey with me. And I'm happy to have y'all on this journey for many more to come. And disclaimer, this episode will be a long episode. So I'll let y'all know now. If y'all already listened to the past anniversary episode, y'all already know the deal. But to all the new listeners, this will be a long episode. So sit back, relax, and join me on this journey. Happy 6-year anniversary to MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Chill!
This is Bronx Boom Boom wishing a happy anniversary to MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast.
It's your girl, Brooklyn Lexi, aka Lexi London, and I want to say make sure you subscribe to my YouTube and shop Magic Natural Beauty. Besides that, we're here today to celebrate Ken, MrGentleman's 6-year anniversary. Cha-ching! Go ahead, Mr. Ken. Thank you for always being there. Thank you for always looking for the small voices and pushing them through. And cheer! Another 6 more years to you.
Happy anniversary, Ken, aka MrGentleman, from Mayor Blake and Kevin at the Films and Fermentation Podcast.
Hi, it's Hazelide Rose, singer-songwriter and entrepreneur. Happy 6th year anniversary to MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast.
Hey, it's Rena.
And this is Wayne, Rena's dad from the Big Daddy from Better Call Daddy show. And we want to wish you a happy anniversary of 6 years in podcasting. And you do a wonderful job. And happy anniversary.
And keep bringing your gifts to the world.
Sounds great.
Hello, everybody. This is your boy Ken, aka MrGentleman, and I am the host of MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. And this commercial break is brought to you by MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. On MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast, we interview many guests about their life journey, pretty much where they come from and where they at now. Also promoting their brands or whatever they're doing at the time they come on the show. We also have the host talk about personal stories about himself and everything that he's been through. And also we have fun conversation about anything music, anything old school, relationships, wrestling, and many more. And y'all can tune in to MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast every Sundays at 12 a.m. We are also on every Thursdays at 12 a.m. for Spin-Off Series Thursdays, where we have all of MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast spin-off series all in one day, where we have a conversation about music podcast every first Thursday at 12 a.m. The Old School Show with myself and the Star Roddy Rod every fourth Thursday at 12 a.m. And we have Date Night Talk Podcast with myself and Miss Vanna B every second and third Thursday at 12 a.m. And y'all can tune in to MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, the Pods, and many more. Or y'all can check it out on the official website of MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast, www.realmrgentlemanlifestylepodcast.com, www.realmrgentlemanlifestylepodcast.com. And tune in every Sundays and Thursdays at 12 a.m. for MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Thank y'all for tuning in to this commercial break of MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Back to your regularly scheduled program. Cheer!
Hi, my name is Rose, aka Rosie, the Haitian Mama from the Mama Life Podcast, and I would like to wish a happy 6 year anniversary to the Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast.
What's good? It's Brownie Marie, founder of the Fox Hunters Club dating app, wishing Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast a very happy 6 year anniversary. Congratulations. Wishing you much more success and blessings.
Hi, my name is Alejandra, and I am from Austin, Texas. And I'm the podcast host of ACMG Digital Podcast, which we interview many entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs from all over the world. And happy 6 year anniversary to Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast. It's an amazing time. I met Ken last year when I started my podcast, but it was an amazing time to be on this podcast as he interviews many awesome people. So I'm excited for what's to come for his ventures, for his goals this coming year, and I can't wait to have him back on our podcast. So congratulations, Ken, and I hope that you have many blessings and successes in 2025.
Happy anniversary, Ken, Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast. I wish you many more blessings, love, and success. From Chef Ashley.
Hey, Mr. Gentleman, it's Nicole from the Doom Generation podcast, calling to wish you a happy anniversary and thank you for all your support.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. And at this time, today is a special day. Not only that is Dr. Martin Luther King Day, but it is also Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast 6 year anniversary. And if anybody would have told me 6 years ago that I was going to start a podcast, let alone do this show for 6 years, I would have looked at you crazy. And, doing the show we had many ups and downs. There have been many times where I felt like I was not good enough. There have been times where I wanted to give up. There have been times where I was discouraged of even sharing some stuff that happened in my life. But I just had to say thank you, everybody who took the time to listen to my story, who was inspired by it, and who believed in me from day one. It really means a lot. And honestly, if it wasn't for y'all taking the time to give Mr. Gentleman like that podcast a chance, this show would not go on as far as it did. So I just want to say thank you, everybody who took the time and listened to Mr. Gentleman like that podcast. With 234 episodes, 29 platforms, 100 countries, 74 guests that came on Mr. Gentleman Like That podcast, 25 guest platforms that I was on, 47 podcast guest platforms as a whole, 2 IG lives, 4 online articles and other projects, and multiple time #1 on Good Pods, 46 times for Society and Culture, 4 times for documentary, 9 times for a personal journal, 4 times for top 100 shows, and was on other podcast charts. And I don't say the accolades to brag or not like that. I say the accolades because I am proud of the work that I've done. Because honestly, I didn't think I could do any of this stuff. If people know me, I am not a public person. I'm very shy. I don't really like to talk. But when you see something that you love and you see something that you really want to change about yourself, you just have to go out there and put yourself out there. And I'm proud of myself for doing that. Trust me, the Ken back in the day would not do that. But thank you to the show to really push me to get to the place where I want to be. And for that, I thank you, everybody that took the time to listen to the Gentleman Like That podcast. Growing up, I had many dreams that I wanted to do. Always want to be an actor. Always want to be even a DJ. and many other things, but also always want to be a radio host as well. As a kid, I saw this commercial as a kid where they had a commercial where you could make your own radio station and where you could plug it up and you could listen to yourself on AM radio station. And I was spoiled as a kid, being the only boy. I was spoiled. I used to get everything that I wanted, but that was the only thing I never got. I always wanted to get on the radio and do stuff, but I never got a chance to do it because I was very shy. I wasn't confident in my voice. Growing up, I was picked on as a kid growing up. And I was being called many names. So I'm stupid, dumb, retarded. I wasn't going to be stuff like that. And I would tease a lot growing up. And because of that, I lost my confidence for a very long time. Even as an adult, I lost my confidence for a very long time because of that. As time went on, I wanted to find myself. I wanted to see what I was good at because I always felt like I wasn't talented at nothing. That when I started doing music, because I was a really dope songwriter. Started a group with my team. Then I started doing acting, started doing stuff that I really wanted to do. Got doing club promoting. And I started doing the things I wanted to do. So one day in 2018, me and my bro, Aaron Quinto, we had the opportunity to start a radio show, which was originally supposed to be the Premier Boy podcast. We were supposed to do it at a radio station and stuff like that, but it didn't happen because one, with money involved, we didn't have the money at the time. Two, we didn't have an actual idea of what we wanted to do. So that idea was put on hold for a very long time. So later that year, in September of 2018, somebody that I know, a good friend of mine, by the name of Queen Libra, she started a podcast show. And I heard the podcast show, and I had her up and asked her, how did you start your podcast show? And she told me about the app named Anchor. So I told myself, you know what? This is my opportunity to finally start a radio show, start a podcast, start something I always wanted to do. So September came, and I planted the idea, but then I started to push it back. October came, I said that I was going to start it, then I pushed it back. November came, I said I was going to start it, then I pushed it back. December came, I finally came up with the name, which was MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. And the reason why I started that name because I was known as Ken, aka MrGentleman, and it was inspired by Neil's album Year of the Gentleman, which came out in 2008. And I didn't want to use that at the time because Neil was the gentleman, but I felt like if I wanted to use that name, I had to do that lifestyle. And I asked people said I should do it, but as I had the name, I wasn't living that lifestyle too a little later. Which now that make that name so much important now because I am now living that lifestyle. MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast is me. But even in December, I came up with the name. I still haven't started the show yet. Early January, I said I'm going to start the show, and I still haven't done it. So on January 19th, it was on a Saturday night because I was promoting that time during the time. And due to stuff that happened, I was like, no, I'm not going to go out tonight. So I sat at home, and I just said, what am I going to do tonight? And I decided to start the podcast. And I remember this because I hit up five people asked them, should I start the podcast tonight? And all five of those people said, yeah, So I sat there, and I recorded it. I got on Anchor. I didn't have no mic or nothing. I just had headphones, regular earbuds headphones, and my phone. And I just, started recording the first popular episode of MrGentleman Like the Podcast. Recorded on the night, on January 19th. It was that night, I remember, and yeah, and it was released at 12 a.m. on January 20th, 2019. And when I released it, I felt like there was something missing with the show. And pretty much the thing that was missing was music. And I started to add music because I wanted to make it have like a radio feel to the show. And that's what I did. So it was launched. Yeah, I pretty much, the first pilot episode of MrGentleman Like the Podcast was pretty much about introducing myself, basically, and what the show was about. I ain't gonna hold you, the audio was so bad during that episode, was so bad. Like, if I listen to the episode now, I would be ashamed of myself because it was so bad. But I heard people heard it, you know, close friends heard it, family heard it, and they said, "Wow, this is a really good show." And they said that I had a radio voice. My voice was made for radio, and honestly, hearing those compliments, it were really good hearing those compliments because, you know, growing up, I was not confident in my voice, so hearing that, it really helped me. And that was episode 0 of MrGentleman Like the Podcast. Then episode 1 came, and I was thinking out what should I do for the show going forward. So originally, I was gonna have it as news. I was gonna have news into the segment, and I recorded the news and stuff like that. I remember the first news article I spoke about was Jesse Starlett. You know, the whole thing where he getting beat up before we knew that it was not the real thing. And I added it to it, and I just felt like news didn't fit the show. It didn't fit me. I didn't feel right doing news. You know, I didn't feel right. So I knew that I wanted to have guests. And I feel like when I started the show, my main purpose was, the one main purpose of the show was that I wanted to have people that I actually know in real life, have them come on the show and talk about everything that they are doing, because I wanted to give them a platform where people know, know how talented they are. And I wanted to give them their flowers because they're just talented and stuff like that. And that's what I want. I want to give. That was my way of giving back to people. I want to have people who I know on the show, so the world could know how great they are. The world could know their talent, and the world could know what they could do. So my first guest was my sister, my second older sister, Coach Dale Powell. And it was a very short interview. Because she also had a podcast during that time that would drop in called Coaching Out Loud with Dale Powell. And it was a good way to introduce her and talk about her show and what she going to do and stuff like that. And it was a good first episode so far. You know, episode 2 came, and it was Love is Love, Valentine's Day episode. And it was 2 versions to the show. The first version, I recorded it and I released it, but it came out terrible. I did not like it at all. I went to work. I remember I went to work and stuff like that. And when I came home from work, the episode had no plays. So I got really discouraged. About that. And what I did was, I remember because I got home at 6 p.m. So what I did was, I removed the episode. I went back and I started recording the episode all over again. And I kept it real. I kept it real this time. I felt like the first version, I was just rushed it and just wanted to put out something to put out. But this time, probably my first time I was vulnerable. I people talking about my love life and where I'm at, you know, and stuff like that. And people heard it and people actually liked it, you know, and people liked this new version. And yeah, and that was episode 2. Episode 3 was Wins and Losses of Life with Aaron Kitosian, my bro Aaron Kitosian. So basically, this episode was about, you know, me talking about my wins and losses in life, and I believe I talk about, you know, the passing of my grandmother and stuff like that. Then we talk about, then I had Aaron Sands on the show, and we talk about, you know, stuff that going on in his life and his business and stuff like that. Then episode 4 came, and originally I had a guest for episode 4, but something happened. Something was bothering me during that time. So I decided to vent. And I called this episode, I got something I want to say. And I pretty much vented about a lot of stuff. And looking back at that episode, I didn't like it. I should have vented the way I did. But for some reason, a lot of people liked that episode. I didn't like the episode. But a lot of people did. And shockingly, it was one of the good episodes of season 1, which was pretty crazy. So episode 5, we had my good friend Pandy Aloud come on the show, and she's an entrepreneur, and she pretty much talked about her business, like the business that she's doing. And this was probably one of the most popular episodes during the season. And it was a really good episode. It was one of my favorite guests during this time. So episode 6, we had the listener choice episode, and pretty much people ask me questions and stuff like that. Kind of a filler episode, because during the time I was trying to figure out what is the direction of the show. And honestly, I was still all over the place. And you know what they say, when you get to 7 episodes, people don't last 7 episodes. And I did thought about giving up because I wasn't sure what the direction I was going with the show. So I was like, what am I trying to do with the show? Like, I really don't know. So I just started to rethink the idea and stuff like that. So episode 7 came, and it was the WrestleMania prediction episode. It was 2 versions to the show episode. The first version was just me doing the WrestleMania prediction episode, and as I recorded it, I knew that I didn't like it. Like, in my head, like, I know a lot of people does do prediction episode by themselves, but I can't do it by myself. I feel like this episode needed a guest. So I hit up my bro, Aaron Quinto, to come back on the show, and he pretty much did the rest of the prediction episode, and pretty much he done it pretty much ever since. And it became a thing. He became one of my first guest co-hosts to come on the show, and he did pretty much a lot of the rest of the prediction shows going forward. But I know the most memorable thing during this episode was after we finished recording, Nipsey Hussle passed away, and that was a really sad loss because he was pretty dope. I feel like he have a big future, an even bigger future, I should say, coming out, and we lost him so soon. So it was really sad. Like, you know, so yeah, that was a really bad loss. So episode 8, we got my sisters, Tawana and Dale Powell on the show, and my 2 older sisters on the show. Well, even though they already came on the show, I had my older sister come on the show, and this was a really, really good episode. We want to talk about their nightlife journey, and talk about when they got saved, and talk about the business they're doing now. And this was a really good conversation. I really enjoyed this episode. Episode 9, we got the Countdown Show Volume 1, which was my first of 6 series of this show, where I count down from 10 to 1 of the songs that I played on the show. And these was like mid-finale type episodes. Because this episode came and gave me time to know, like, what is my next step with the show? And I ain't gonna lie, this was a big hit. I'm not gonna hold you. This was a big hit. So episode 10, we have my bro, Long Live the Chief Mighty Mal on the show. And this was the first interview where I did it face to face. And so he came over and we did the interview face to face. We talked about him being an artist and him being an entrepreneur and stuff like that. And this was a really, really good episode. Yeah, shout out to the bro, Long Live the Chief Mighty Mal. Episode 11 was the Mother's Day episode. I pretty much did an episode dedicated to all mothers, including my mother. The episode after it was my birthday episode, which was a special bonus episode. And, you know, it was a really cool episode. But also during this time, I was going through a depression with a lot of stuff from many other events that happened and stuff like that. And my mind just wasn't there, you know. And I didn't really even celebrate the birthday. I just say this for my birthday episode, and that was it. I just wasn't. But if you heard the episode, you could tell that I was going through something. I just wasn't feeling it. And then after that, I just took a short break and just figure out, myself and everything. So the show came back in June of 2019, and I started I started my first spin-off show, which was called New Music / Unsigned Hype Fridays, where I played music on the show and I played an unsigned hype artist, like pretty much an indie artist on the show, and I was supposed to interview them and stuff like that. This was like the original version of a conversation about music podcast, but the show didn't do great at all. No artist didn't want to come on the show because I was doing a new podcast. And I got turned down by a lot of artists. I hit up a lot of artists to come on the show, but a lot of them did not want to come on the show, and then I got turned down a lot, and that kind of discouraged me a lot. And also, a lot of people didn't like this series because it wasn't no talking; it was just me playing music, and people did not like that at all. People didn't like that at all. So I was like, dang, because it's one thing about me. I love music, and I wanted to showcase indie artists. And let's just say this idea didn't go as planned. Let's just say that it didn't go as planned. So we went back to the main series, the episode 12. We got my bro Trophy T on the show, and this was another live episode where we talk about him being a skateboarder. Talk about his Brendan highlight shades and stuff like that. This was a really interesting episode because during this episode, there's a lot of stuff going on around us, and we was literally like recording it while walking. It was one of those episodes. I wish I would have done a YouTube version of this episode because that would have been really dope to do a YouTube version of this episode. Then in July of 2019, I decided to cancel the Unsigned Hype / New Music Friday show because it just wasn't working out. The vision I had for the show was to have people come on the show and we would interview other artists and stuff like that. But it just didn't work out, and I decided to cancel this series. And this series only had 6 episodes, and it just didn't work out. I need to build up I need to build up what I need to do before I even plan to do a spin-off series. So yeah. Next we have episode 13, which was the Premier Boy podcast pilot episodes, which we announced during this episode that we are having another podcast show called the Premier Boy podcast, which was myself, Aaron Quito Sands, and the Star Rider Ride. Well, during this time he was DJ Retro. And we pretty much talk about our journey and through everything that we've done together, from the music, from being promoters and stuff like that. It was a really fun episode. It was a good introduction to the Premier Boy podcast. So episode 14, we got my little sister on the show, author Sharice Powell, and we talk about her first book, Life is What You Make It, to Make Life Make You. And yeah, it was a cool introduction for us coming to the show. Episode 15, we got SummerSlam episode with Aaron Quito Sands. Episode 16, we got Bronx Boom Boom coming to the show, who is a model, who is a comedian, who is an entrepreneur. And this was the first interview who was somebody who I did not know in real life. She was a social media friend we knew for a very long time, but we did never interact in real life. But this was a really good interview, and I really hope in the future I can bring her back on the show because we definitely need a part 2 to this interview. Especially with a lot that I know what to do now. Episode 17, we got Miss Mighty Pie coming to the show, who is an actress, and she had this YouTube show called Mariposa. And doing it, I like this interview because during the interview she was really, really shy. And when we did the interview, she didn't come off as shy at all, but she was really shy. This was actually also one of my favorite interviews I did for the season. And yeah, this was a really fun episode. Shout out to her. Shout out to her. Episode 18, we got the Character Show Volume 2, which I got a little deeper about, I spoke about, what's going on in my life. And this was the season 1 finale of Mr. Gentleman Like That podcast. So we took a short break, and during this time, the Premier Way podcast was born, which was on September 11th, 2019. So my focus was on the Premier Way podcast for a little bit until season 2 premiere, which was November 23rd, 2019. And the first guest for season 2 was Aaron Kingdom Sands, who was the guest host who interviewed me. And he did a good job interviewing me on this show, and that was the start of season 2. Episode 20, we got my best friend Shadiqua come on the show. How I met her was we used to work together for New York Code, and then ever since then we became friends ever since. And she came on the show. It was just pretty much one of those catch-up conversation type episodes, and it was a really fun conversation. This was actually everybody's fan favorite for the season. Everybody enjoyed her coming on the show. And yeah, she was definitely a fan favorite. And yeah. Episode 21 was Survivor Series prediction episode with King Tok Sands. Episode 22, we got the Star Rider Ride back on the show, which was his first official interview to come on the show. And we pretty much talked about him being the DJ and how much we love music. Because one thing me and him got in common more than anything is we both love music, like R&B music at that. So it was a good conversation about music with the Star Rider Ride. Episode 23, we got my real life cousin Nana Powell coming on the show, and she is a actress, she is a writer, she's a director, and we talk about her actress journey and many more. It was a good conversation. And then we go into the year 2020. And the first episode of 2020 was episode 24, Miss Felicia Wright, which was on the New Year's, by the way. But this episode was pretty much the shift of the change of Mr. Gentleman Like the podcast. I did the episode face to face, and we had to do the episode do the episode over like 3 to 4 times because it was not coming out right. But this episode became a really good episode because she opened up about a lot, which during this time I wasn't really tackling deep conversation. It was just to let people know that about what the talent, the stuff that they're doing. But this interview really changed it, and she started to open up, and I was like, wow. And then a lot of people who listened to this episode were like, wow, this is a really good episode. And they liked because she was opening up about her life and stuff like that. And I felt like in the early days, nobody wasn't ready for that type of conversation. But as time went on, the next couple episodes, it was just that. Episode 25, we got Miss Chrissy Christ come on the show. And she was another type of episode where it was really deep, where she opened up about her life, being in the Army. She is a podcast host for Sister Food Podcast. She's an author, and she opened up a lot about her life as well. And I was just like, wow, this also was a really good episode. Then the next episode that was the 1-year anniversary of Mr. Gentleman Like the Podcast, which was a really milestone because I didn't think at the time that I was going to make it for 1 year. And it was just like, wow, Then episode 26 was a Rumble Prediction episode with Aaron Kito Sands. Episode 27, we got Jay Siobhan from Surviving the Journey coming on the show. And this was another deep episode that she opened about, her life, about a whole lot of stuff about her life. And this was another episode where a lot of people liked. The only issue about this episode was during this time, I was recording through Anchor. So a lot of the episodes was messing up because of Anchor. And this was one of them that would hurt the most during that time. So, yeah, that was the only downfall of the episode. But other than that, this was a really great episode. And, I had to thank you, Felicia Wright, Chrissy Christ, and Jay from Siobhan for helping me change the shift of the show a little bit. to make it more so people could be vulnerable and people could be more deep and okay to have deep conversations to come on the show. And that's where I started the saying, if you notice the flyer, I say that safe place for conversation because those 3 episodes started that. So yeah, I just want to thank them 3 for helping me to add in people to be more deep coming to the show. I want to thank y'all for that. Episode 28, we got Love is Love 2020. Basically, another Valentine's Day episode. Episode 29 was the mid-season 2 finale of MrGentleman Like the Podcast, the Countdown Show Volume 3, which was probably my favorite Countdown Show episode because it was an old school episode. And during this segment, I pretty much spoke about why I love music. And I talked about me being an artist and yeah, this basically was just me talking about how much I love old school music, how much I love music as a whole. And yeah. So after this, we took a short break from MrGentleman Like the Podcast. And this was February of 2020. And many things happened before March of 2020. I made my first podcast guest appearance. And one thing about me, I told myself that I wasn't going to be a podcast host where I wanted to go on people's shows because I wasn't confident with, going on people's shows. I wasn't confident with talking to people. I'm okay with interviewing people, but me going on people's shows, me asking me questions, I didn't want to feel like I was stupid. I didn't want to feel like I did have confidence in myself. But, in order to grow, you had to get out of your comfort zone. So I decided to go on my first podcast appearance, which was Jay Siobhan's show, Surviving the Journey. And it was my first time people going on a show, opening up, and it felt good doing that. It felt good doing that after a while. I mean, of course, I still wasn't comfortable with it because I was new, but of course, clearly down the line, yeah, I did 47 interviews altogether. Clearly, like, it became, I got over that fear, and I want to thank everybody who I came on the show to help me get out of my fear. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Also, during this time, I joined a podcast community called the COOP, the Circle of Outstanding Podcasters, which was run by Angelica from A Little Bit Everything with Me and Coupon Queen Pin for CQP Moments. And this thing started because all of us was in this anchor group on Facebook. And it was somebody else running it at the time. And she wanted to start a podcast community. But the podcast community that she started, it was really no vision. It was all over the place. She didn't really have passion for podcasting. She was just doing it just to do it and just to network. But when Angelica and Coupon Queen stepped in, they started to talk to us with ideas and stuff and how to all of it get involved. And then when they started the co-op in February of 2020. And I was happy for them starting that community because that played a big part in helping me, get out of my comfort zone, helping me to work with other people, helping me to go on other platforms and get out of the fear of, get out of my fear. They played a big part in helping me, to network with more people and to just to get uncomfortable, to get comfortable. They played a big part. So I want to thank the COOP family, everybody from the COOP family, because they play a big part of where the show is now. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be where I'm at. So for that, I thank you. And yeah, thank you for joining me on this journey. It really means a lot. Thank you. So March 2020, and something really big happened all over the world, which was COVID. And COVID affected me heavy because I was really scared. I'm not gonna hold you, I was really scared. I don't know, because watching the news during that time, it was scary because we don't know much about COVID during this time, and we watching the news, and all we hearing was people dying. You can catch it anywhere. You could just catch it by touching somebody. It was we didn't know much about it, and oddly, I was really freaked out during the time. So during this time, I started getting, my throat started acting up, and I thought it was a regular sore throat, so I didn't think nothing of it. But then as time went on, it got worse. It got really worse, and as time went on, as I watching the news, and feeling this pain, I started to freak out, and I was so freaked out. I gave my life to God because I was so scared during that time. And I remember this on March 16th, 2020. It was 11 p.m. and I was really freaking out, and I couldn't breathe. And I was panicking a lot. Everybody was like, "What's going on? What's going on with you?" My sister told me that I would have an anxiety attack. I had a panic attack, and the crazy thing about it was I never had anxiety ever. I always felt like I had social anxiety, but I never had general anxiety. And honestly, I thought I was having a heart attack. And this panic attack lasted from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I was just freaking out. Nobody knew what to do, so I went to the hospital. And as I went to the hospital, the doctor told me, "You shouldn't be here. If you don't got COVID, you shouldn't be here," and stuff like that. They checked me and they told me that I was having it. I was diagnosed with anxiety. I was having an anxiety attack and a panic attack, and they gave me medicine for it. And as I was taking no medicine during that time, it only made things worse. It only made things worse, and I was dealing with panic attack for 2 weeks after that. During this time, I took a break from the show because, we was on mid-season break anyway, so the show didn't come back yet. But I had a different idea for the original premiere episode. But due to this, it didn't happen until I was ready to come back. A lot was happening during this time. And y'all already know. Y'all heard the COVID episode in the show. I spoke about it a lot. But yeah. So during this time, we had a 2-part episode called Coronavirus Part 1 and 2. Part 1 was pretty much about, let everybody know that we all gonna be all right. And yeah, we all here together. And then Part 2 was pretty much about, the story that I just told you just now about, dealing with anxiety attack and stuff like that. And it was a lot. And honestly, this time was like a time, it was a lot because a lot had happened. On episode 32, we got my little sister back on the show, Arthur Sharice Powell. We spoke about her 2 newest books, which were The Sweet Taste of Almond and Life What You Make It to Make Life Make You Part 2. Episode 33 was the WrestleMania prediction episode with Aaron Kingdom Sands. During this time, I planned a new segment called Dayton Talk segment. And during this time, back in February, before COVID happened, I met up with this girl who I was talking to at the time, and we met when I was club promoting. And I met up with her, and I was trying to get her to come on the show, and she was like, "What stuff you want to talk about?" And she wanted to talk about dating and stuff. And that, and her, brought the idea, but that never happened. But then another person I know, Miss Cece, who was another good friend of mine, she brought the idea again, and she's like, "I want to come on the show, but can we talk about dating?" And I was like, "Sure." I told her about, I have a new segment called Dating Talk, and yeah, I could be on the show. So episode 34 was Date Night Talk Part 1 with Miss Cece, and I changed the name because it turns out another podcaster had this show called Dating Talk Podcast, and I didn't want to copycat, so I decided to change the segment to Date Night Talk. What the original idea was going out on date, and I interviewed the person. But clearly, since COVID happened, I couldn't do the idea. So, Date Night Talk Part 1 was Miss Cece, which was a really good episode, and she talked about a lot of, her dating experience and stuff like that. And it became a thing for a little bit. So, episode 35, Date Night Talk Part 2, we got Miss Vanna B coming to the show, who is a really good friend. And, we talked about her dating experience, which was, honestly probably one of my favorite date night talk stories that we had on the show. And yeah. Then episode 36, we got a podcaster by the name of Brianna Lightfoot Smith, who had the podcast show called Black Girl with Purpose Podcast, and it was a really good episode. You know, this was another one of those deep episodes, but this was a really good episode. Episode 37, we got part 3 of Date Night Talk, where I had a social media friend called Lily, and it was probably my first long episode I had on the show. It was my first long episode I had on the show. And this was a really good episode of Date Night Talk. Episode 39, we got Miss Natalie Armstrong, who is a podcaster. And this was a pretty interesting episode because we spoke about religion on this episode. It was a really interesting topic. Then episode 39 was Countdown Show Volume 4 / My Birthday Celebration, which was the season 2 finale of MrGentleman Like That podcast. And on this episode, we did a top 15 countdown. I pretty much talked about my birthday. And it pretty much talked about, I'm just happy to be alive during this time. Because remember, we were doing COVID during this time. And it was a lot. So we took a short break. And, not only COVID happened during this time, we had a lot of injustice in the Black community during this time as well. And me and the bros from the Premier Boy podcast, we resumed our show because we wasn't doing no show because of COVID. So we decided to start recording on Anchor, which was a really bad idea on our part. It was a really bad idea on our part, but it was one episode during that time, but it was really special to us. And we called this segment called "This Is America," and "This Is America" was a really deep episode because we spoke about, we talked about Trump first election, we talked about coronavirus, we talked about the injustice in the community. It was a really deep episode, which we decided to add on my show as well because I feel like my audience needed to hear this episode. It's so important to all of us. So season 3 of MrGentleman Like That podcast was June 20th, 2020, and the first guest was this artist by the name of Banger Official, and she brought us 2 songs, and we spoke about her project called A New Life, and this was a really good conversation. Episode 41, we got Anthony from the Beautiful Feet podcast, who is also a part of the COOP family, who was the first COOP family to come on the show. And we spoke about, his podcast show, the Beautiful Feet podcast, and we spoke about wrestling. Because one thing, I was a wrestling fan, and he was also a wrestling fan. So it was a good way to talk about wrestling on the show. And I went on his show as well, on the Beautiful Feet podcast, and we spoke about my show and, wrestling as well. Episode 42 was the road to recovery, and I spoke more about, what's going on in America, basically, from the justice from the White House and many more, Episode 43, we got Angelica for a little bit, everything with me coming to the show. And this was her introduction episode to come on MrGentleman Like the podcast. This was a really good episode. Episode 44, I got my bro, Movie Dollars, come on the show. And I know him, me and him went to junior high school together. And he's a music artist. And he brought me like 2 songs off his project, Do the Right Thing. And yeah, he was a really dope artist. Now, shout out to my bro, Luke Dollars. Episode 45, we got my Taurus sis, Coupon Cream Pen, who is part of Co-op, who got a podcast show called CQP Moments. And this was a really good conversation. And I actually liked this interview. Episode 46, I got the story of Ken, the club promoter, which was pretty much about my club promoting journey. And during this time, I was still undecided on what was the next step of me being a club promoter due to COVID. But after this episode, which was August 2020, I got my first copyright infringement. And the reason why for the copyright infringement, Universal Music Group, they removed one of my episodes because of the music played on the show, which was episode 23, which was my cousin Nana Power episode. And at the time, I didn't take it serious. I was just like, okay, whatever. And Stu played music on the show. I didn't realize later that this was a big thing. But yeah. Episode 47, we got the SummerSlam prediction episode, which was with Aaron Keaton Sands. Episode 48, we got Michelle Miller on the show, who is the host of Mentor on the Mic, who is also a part of the Co-op family. And this was a really good interview. We talk about all her acting journey. We talk about her podcast show and many more. This was a really good episode. Then after this episode, Spotify decided to take MrGentleman off. MrGentleman like to podcast off their platform, and I'm not gonna hold you. When this happened, I was really depressed by this because I'm like, dang, yo, what am I gonna do now? Like, this really hurt. So I was like, dang, man, what am I gonna do now? So for the next couple of episodes, I would just have to figure out what am I gonna do with MrGentleman like the podcast, not on the platform. So we did the countdown show, and I pretty much spoke about, the Spotify takedown. Even though I do play music on the show, it was on Spotify for a little bit. So during this time, I decided to take a break from the show, and I tried to decide like what to do next. During the time with 2020, it was like August 2020. I was still trying to figure out what to do, and since I was at work, I lost my job during the pandemic and stuff like that. I wanted to start taking the show more serious. So I decided to buy a mic. I decided to buy headphones. I decided to stop using Anchor as a recording because it kept messing up. And I got tired of it. So I decided to buy Zoom, premium version of Zoom, and started to record on there. I decided to start editing my shows. And I downloaded an editing program. I started to edit my shows. And also I got a haircut. Because during that time I had COVID hair. I had an afro. And yeah, I know it had nothing to do with the podcast, but it was still part of the journey. And I just started to start a brand new. I just started to start over, It was like a new way of the show. So we came back on September, episode 50. We got Pam Deal Out Part 2, and we started to talk about her new journey and stuff like that. And during this time, this was the biggest episode during this time. Like the audio sound way better. Everybody hit me up saying, yo, the audio sound way better. Wow. Everybody really enjoyed the new changes and stuff like that. The changes were so good. We got back on Spotify. So I was so happy to get back on Spotify, but I still didn't learn my lesson though. But I'll talk about that a little later. So episode 51, I got Bromar for the Bromar Show coming to show, who is also a part of the co-op community, and this was a really good episode. This did a lot better than I expected. A lot of people enjoyed this episode, and they enjoyed him because he got a radio voice. So shout out to the bro Bromar. He always shout me out during this time. I definitely got to bring you back for a feature episode with the Gentleman Like the podcast. And one milestone happened during this time, and I got on a podcast chart for the first time. And I got on the Apple podcast chart for the first time for Society and Culture. And I was really happy during this time. I was like, wow. The fact that people listen on Apple Podcast, not even in this country. So it was a real honor. I was really happy, because I feel like we are slowly getting in the right direction. We're slowly getting to the right direction. So 52, we got Gia Jackson coming on the show. She is also part of the Core family. She got a podcast show called The Silhouette Podcast. She effing did that and Decon Party Podcast. This was a really good conversation. This was the second episode that we were doing video podcast. Pam was the first, but she was the second. And this was a really good episode, and I need to definitely bring her back on the show because this was really good. I really enjoyed this episode. Episode 53, we got Amber come on the show, and she is an entrepreneur. She got a business called The Shade Shop, and yeah, this was a good episode. Then after that, I was thinking about playing a new spin-off series show, and I wanted to bring the star writer out on the show. And originally, the original idea for the show was to talk about old school music, from hip hop, R&B, and stuff like that. But I went to bed that night, and I woke up the next day, and I said to myself, the old school show. 'Cause I feel like it made sense because we spoke about a lot of stuff old school, from music, from movies, from TV shows, and many more. I told the star writer Rod, and he was on board for the show. The old school show, we had 25 episodes, and we have Aaron Kito San came to the old school show, Miss Vanna B, Magna, and Marsha. Those were all the guests that came for old school show. The old school show was on every fourth Sundays. Then we moved to every fourth Thursdays. Then episode 54, I brought back the Date Night Talk segments because more people wanted to come on the show. So the next 3 episodes were Date Night Talk segments. Episode 54 was Shadiqua came back on the show and talked about her dating experience for Date Night Talk Part 4. Episode 55, Date Night Talk Part 5, we got Naya coming to the show, and she is somebody I knew from junior high school. And I reached out to her, and she wanted to talk about dating, so I brought her on the show. It was a really good conversation. Episode 56, Dating Night Talk Part 6, which is the final segment of Dating Night Talk. We got Amber back on the show to talk about her dating experience and many more. Episode 57, so it's a Survivor Series prediction episode. Aaron Kito came back on the show. Episode 58, we got Lacey on the show, and I knew her since the first day I promoted. I met her the first day, and we was cool ever since. And she spoke about her business and many more. This was a really good conversation. Episode 59 was the season 3 finale, which was the Countdown Show Volume 6, which was the final Countdown Show episode. And I just felt like we had to end it because, our show started getting taken out a lot on Spotify. So we got back on Spotify. More episodes got taken out, and I decided to play music less on the show. Cause I felt like with her in the show more than with Harmon, so I decided to end the segment. It was a lot going on. It is now the year 2021, and we are back with the season 4 premiere, which was a 2-day premiere. There was a lot of stuff happening during this time. So episode 60, we have Cynthia on the show, who is a part of the COOP family, who had a podcast show called Our Collaboration Station, and we talked about her show, everything she done with her life, and this was a really good episode to start off the new year and start off the new season. Episode 61, which was a day later, we got the Date Night Talk pilot episode, and I brought Naya back on the show, and she pretty much asked me date night talk questions and stuff like that. And during this time, I was planning to do a new Date Night Talk spin-off show originally, and Naya was supposed to be the co-host during the time, but I still wasn't 100 on the idea yet. So it didn't happen during this time. Then we had the 2-year anniversary of MrGentleman the podcast. The episode 62, we had the Royal Rumble prediction episode with Aaron Kito San and Long Live the Chief Money Mal. Episode 63, we have Love is Love 2021. Episode 64, we got Paige from the Badass Fabulous podcast, who is also a part of the COOP family. And this was actually one of my favorite guests of the first half of season 4. And I really enjoyed this episode. Shout out to Paige. Episode 65, we got an artist from UK by the name of Hazel Odd Rose, and she's a music artist. And this was a really, really deep episode. She spoke about a lot, a lot about mental health, a lot about, everything that she's been through, her new journey and stuff like that. And this was a really deep episode. And after this episode, I wanted to go more deeper, not only with my guests but with myself as well. This was pretty much the start of this season. Was the start of things getting more deep, going forward. Things started going more deeper, I should say, after that episode. Episode 66, we got my boy Sam, who I went to high school with. We talked about his business, being an entrepreneur, and many more. Episode 67, we got the biggest WrestleMania episode with Emma Quinto Sands. Episode 68, we got Miss Vanna B back on the show, and this time this was her actual interview. We pretty much talk about stuff that's going on in her life, everything that she do from her big hair business, and many more. This was actually a really good conversation. I really enjoyed the conversation. And then April 2021, Spotify took our show down once again, but this time it was for a long period of time. And I was just like, it was. I didn't know what to do. It was a lot, and I think after this time, episode 69 was pretty much the mid finale, which was reset and rebrand. I just spoke about everything about Spotify, and that we're gonna take a long break and to really much rethink everything. So yeah, so during this time, I took a long break, and I took all the music off the show, so with no more copyright music. I also edited every episode from episode 69 to episode 0, and I just pretty much every edit that I did, I redid it. I took the time, and I decided to rebrand this whole show. I even got a new cover art, which is the cover art y'all see today. That's how that started. This was after this was the rebrand of MrGentleman at the podcast, official rebrand of MrGentleman at the podcast, and it took me a month to rebrand the whole show from scratch. Every audio, I recorded a lot of audio. I removed every music. I edited every audio, and I just knew that it's time to take the show really serious now, because I realized with the music, I feel like the music on the show, people was enjoying the show because of the music, but I feel like they were not getting to know me. I would hide behind the music. I was not being vulnerable. I was not talking about nothing. I felt like the music was speaking for me, and people didn't know me. So I decided to, after this, I decided to be more real. I decided to be more vulnerable. I decided to really be myself. And that was the change with this rebrand, And I ain't gonna hold you, this rebrand work. So we came back a month later for episode 70, and we got my aunt, Rolanda Powell, on the show, who is an author. And this was a really amazing interview. I really enjoyed this episode. This is probably one of the top 10 interviews of all time on MrGentleman at the podcast, because it was a really great interview. Thank you for my aunt to come on the show and to always support me, through this journey. Episode 71, we got Miss Cece back on the show, and we spoke about her podcast and her businesses and many more. So after this was my birthday episode. And I talk about this episode because this became one of my biggest episodes of all time, which was with numbers that I could not even imagine, numbers that I never saw. That's how high the episode was. And I was just like, wow. I was really impressed. Second big episode was the Old School Show, episode 6. The Nickelodeon episode with Magna and Marsha, which was also an amazing episode. And yeah. And then in June 6, 2021, another spin-off show was born. And I brought back an original spin-off show that I started in 2019. The old name was News Inside Unsigned Hype Fridays, but I decided to be more different with the spin-off show. So the spin-off show was called A Conversation About Music Podcast, pretty much where we talk about everything music, from the artists' albums. I had music artists come to the show, and many more. And this time I did have artists come to the show. And shout out to Gem Star, Be Wise, McDonald came back on the show, Banger Official, and Hazel Eye Rose came back on the show, and Trent Turbo B. And I enjoyed conversating about music. Conversation about music was originally on every first Sundays. Then we moved to every first Thursdays. And we have 15 episodes so far. And season 3 of A Conversation About Music. Special announcement, by the way. Special announcement. Season 3 of A Conversation About Music will be premiering May of 2025. May 2025. A Conversation About Music Season 3. May 2025. Then after that, episode 72, we got Mariah on the show. And how Mariah came on the show. She is a friend of the Star Writer Rod, and he recommended her to come on the show. And she's an entrepreneur and content creator. And this was a pretty cool episode. Episode 73, we got Mr. Jonathan Harris coming on the show, who is the author, who is doing really big things. And this was a really good conversation. The episode did really good. Shout out to him. He's doing amazing things right now. So shout out to you, my brother. Episode 74, we got Miss Felicia White come back on the show. And this time, she spoke about her podcast show and everything that she's doing now. Episode 75, we got Angelica from A Little Bit Everything back on the show. And we literally called it a year later. And this was a really good conversation. We spoke about her being a award-winning podcast host. Spoke about her. This episode was more deeper than the first one, which honestly was one of my favorite episodes this season. And she is still doing amazing things. She also spoke about becoming a mother, stuff like that. So shout out to Angelica. She's killing it right now. Episode 76, we got the Star Writer Rod on the show, which was a part 2 of his interview, which he spoke about a lot. We spoke about a lot. We caught up with a lot of stuff we done during the years, and we just spoke about a lot of things. Episode 77, Naya came back on the show. This was her actual interview, which she spoke about her podcast show, What the F is Nana, and many more. Then we got episode 78, which was the Super SummerSlam prediction with Aaron Quinto Sands. Episode 79, we got Miss Vanna Bella on the show, who is an author, a poet. And this was a really fun conversation. A lot of people liked this episode. I did as well. Only issue with this episode was the audio messed up. But other than that, this was a good conversation. Then was the season 4 finale, which was an episode called I Got Something I Need to Say, which was the start of really me opening up about my life. And I thought about me being bullied and stuff like that, but honestly, it was really hard to talk about at the time. Then we took a short break, and we had the season 5 premiere of MrGentleman at the Pocket on November 14th, 2021. And our first guest was Penelope Rose, who is a podcast host with the podcast show All the Water Podcast. And this was a really good conversation, but then her audio was messing up, which would mess up bad. But other than that, this was a really good conversation. Episode 82, we got the Survivor Series prediction episode with Aaron Quinto Sands. Episode 83, we got our first official comedian coming to the show by the name of Kendra Crump. And she was really funny. She done a lot. She's done a lot of podcast guest appearances. She had her own podcast show called The Kendra Crump Show. And this was a really good conversation. Episode 84, we got Anna K. Hackerson coming to the show. And she is a podcast host for the podcast show for Change Be Bold podcast. She is also part of the COOP family. And I really enjoyed this podcast episode. And we also did a first on the show. We also had our first podcast giveaway where people had to listen to both our shows, and people had to pretty much subscribe, and they will win a book and a shirt on her behalf, which was a really good giveaway. I'm planning to do more giveaways in the future, so that was a really cool episode. Episode 85, we had the big Christmas episode, which was an all-star Christmas episode where we had Angelica from A Little Bit Everything with me, Cynthia, our collaboration station, and Chrissy Christ, Fistful Podcast. And this was a really fun episode. Episode 86 by 2021, Hello 2022, which was pretty much a review episode for everything that happened in the year 2021. Then I had plans for the year 2022. I had many plans, but then I ended up catching COVID for the very first and only time. I caught COVID, and I was out of it for almost a whole month. I was out of it for a whole month. I wasn't doing nothing. I would pretty much just try to just get better. And I had many planned episodes, but I had to push the episode back because I had COVID, which I had to push back Rosie, the Haitian Mama, and this unique episode until I was fully better. But I was better by January 20th, 2022, for the 30th anniversary of MrGentleman, the podcast. And then I got my first number one on Good Pies for the very first time. And I didn't even get to talk about the Good Pie segment. I joined Good Pie on August 2021 because since Spotify took off the show, I needed a new platform to grow my show. And Good Pies was that platform. They hit me up for many years, but I keep turning them down. But then after that, I was like, you know what? I need a new platform, so let me start growing the show. So it was a lot of dope podcasters, and I ain't gonna hold you. When I joined Good Pod, I was very discouraged because it was a lot of podcasters. I got discouraged, and I like, dang, my show is not as good. I thought they had imposter syndrome. I was like, dang, my show is not as good at these shows. Yeah, it was a lot, and I vowed to myself when I joined Good Pod that I would make sure that I would have a number one charted show, and then in January 2022, MrGentleman Like That Pocket was number one for the first time for Society Culture. And honestly, that was a goal to have a number one charted show. And it gave me confidence again, So I was really happy by that. And yeah, it gave me confidence. And even after that, my show started to grow on Good Pies, like heavy. The show started to grow on Good Pies. And we had many more number one for Society Culture for the next couple of years. Then episode 87, we had something unique on the show, who is a singer, who is a model, and this was a really good conversation. Yeah, I really enjoyed her on the show. The episode 88, we had the Rumble to Prediction episode, which was Aaron Quito Sands and Long Live Chief Mighty Mel. Episode 89, we got Rosie, the Haitian Mama on the show, who is the podcast host of Mama's Life. She talked about being a mother, her podcast show, and many more. And this was a really good episode. Shout out to her because she always support MrGentleman Like That podcast. And I really appreciate her for the bottom of my heart because she really supports. And I want to thank you, Rosie. It really means a lot. Episode 90 was Love is Love 2022. Episode 91 was Queen Janae. And I knew Queen Janae because I met her doing my club promoting in Taj. And she was a promoter as well. So I decided to bring her. She hit me up. She wanted to come to the show to talk about everything she done. I was like, okay, cool. And I didn't mind it. But this was a really good conversation. She spoke about, I got to know her a lot more. And this was a really good conversation. Episode 92 was the WrestleMania prediction episode. Episode 93 was my COVID journey. And a lot of people were inspired by this episode because I spoke about my journey, a lot, when I dealt with COVID, even after COVID, because I was still dealing with the after effect of it, even after the fact. But yeah, this was a really big episode this season. Episode 94, we got Therese coming on the show, and she is the podcast host of a Kingdom Chat podcast. And this was one of my favorite guests this season. One of my favorites. I had like a couple favorite guests this season. She was one of them. I really enjoyed our conversation, and then I can't wait to bring her back on the show for a future episode of MrGentleman Like That podcast. So March 21st, 2022, I wanted to try again with Date Night Talk. So I wanted to turn it into a full-on spin-off series. And a lot of people hit me up to be on as a co-host. Naya was supposed to be the original co-host for Date Night Talk, but I felt like even though she is a good, person to connect with, I felt like I needed somebody who could really challenge me. I felt like I wasn't challenging with her. Then I had another person who wanted to be on the show, be a co-host, Penelope Rose, and a couple other people. But my mind was already made up on who I wanted as a co-host. I had two choices to have as a co-host for Date Night Talk. One of them was Magna, who was a guest on the Old School Show, and the other one was Miss Vanna B, and she became the official co-host because she wanted to do this. She had passion to do conversation. We had a good chemistry. She is a good friend of mine, and I wanted to bring her on. I wanted to see what she could do, and she did a good job. And plus, she was about to start her own podcast show, so I wanted to give her an avenue, an opportunity for her to doing the show with me. So Date Night Talk premiere on April 21st, 2022. And we have 11 episodes of Date Night Talk so far. And Date Night Talk became the biggest spin-off series show now. So thank you everybody who took the time to listen to Date Night Talk and really enjoying Date Night Talk. And y'all can check out Date Night Talk every second and third Thursdays. But season 3 of Date Night Talk will be premiering in February 2025. So look out for season 3 of Date Night Talk, February of 2025. Episode 95, we got Elijah Rowe coming to the show, and she is a longtime friend, longtime social media friend, and she is an author, and we spoke about her 2 books. And yeah. And then I got my first online article with Shoutout LA in April 2022, and it was an honor to have the article because it was my very first one. Then we had my 35th birthday celebration. The episode 96, I got why I love podcasting. And the reason why I created an episode because the end of last year, it was this one podcast host. I'm not going to mention the name because he's very irrelevant. And I was supposed to work with him. But for some reason, he was on Twitter throwing shots at me and my team for some reason. I don't know why. He's throwing shots at me and my team, and I just ignored it. But then he came up with this episode called Podcasting Suck. And he just threw shots at me and the team again. So this episode was a kind of a response to talk about the positive thing about the community and everything like that. And just talk about why I love podcasting. Yeah, it was just a response. Even though this response was not needed, I didn't want it to do it just because. So after this, on June 2022, Spotify officially put us back on the platform. And I was so happy when this happened because it was a whole year since this happened. And I was really happy when we got back on the platform. And ever since then, we threw on Spotify now. We never got to go to the platform. There was no more copyrighted songs, no more. Everything is original content. And yeah, and because I ain't gonna hold you, having music on the show, it hurt the show a lot. Having copyright music on the show because I had many guests I wanted on the show and it turned down because I had copyright music. So I knew that if I wanted to create the show and make it, for my legacy and for people to really enjoy me, I had to change it. So I'm happy that I made that change and I'm happy that Spotify gave us another chance. So thank you for that. Thank you, Spotify, for that. Episode 98, we got Amanda on the show. She's the host of Dating Would Be the Death of Me. And this was a really good conversation. Another of my favorite guests of the season. Yeah, this was another good conversation. Episode 98, we have Money in the Bank prediction with Amakito Sands. And then episode 99 was the season 5 finale, which we call The Next Move Part 1. And this episode was pretty deep because during this time, I was going through major depression at the time with everything in my life. I just wasn't happy with nothing. I left the Premier Boy podcast during this time. I just wasn't happy. I burned out. I was going through major depression with too much of my life going on. I had a falling out with my bro during this time. I just wasn't happy. So I just said to myself, this was the time where I told everybody, like, yeah, this is the last time y'all heard me for a while. And I just going to take a long break until I figure myself out. And this break was long because my episode was supposed to be longer than that. But due to personal reasons, I had to cut it short. And it was just a lot going on. And I just stopped everything, I didn't listen to shows like that. Everybody would wonder was I really okay, and I really wasn't. I was going through a major depression during this time, and yeah. But during this time, a lot of people check up on me. A lot of people ask me, "Am I okay?" A lot of people start listening to the show more. As I start to see that, I was just like, "Wow, wow," and it really made me feel better. It really made me feel better, and it got me out of my funk. It got me out of my depression funk. It was really bad. I even thought about things that I shouldn't think about. How bad it was, and it was hard to talk about that. It was hard to talk about that. But I snapped out of reality, and I got back on it. I got back on it, and I came back. I announced the new season, which was in September, and I came up with a bonus episode called "Don't Call It a Comeback," and I just talk about everything I went through, and I just said it was pretty much shout out everybody who was there during my break, and then part one does some good. I decided to make part two, and I was just happy, I was happy. I just started to love this again, I started to love this again, and then I came back with episode 100. Season 6 premiere with episode 100, which was not really with the 100 episode, with the 100 episode celebration. And I felt like this episode was fitting because I brought back my sister, Coach Daya Powell, back on the show because she was my very first guest. And I felt like it was only right to bring her back on the show. And this conversation was even more deeper. She talked about, everything that went on in her life, the podcast show. And it was a really good conversation to the point that I didn't know that this season would be as great as it was, but this was definitely my comeback season. Cause every episode, almost every episode this season was a hit. This was an amazing episode. The episode 101, what is my dream? Pretty much talk about my dreams and this episode was done really big things because it got me my first number one for top 100 shows on Good Pods. And this chart was so important because since I joined Good Pod, I have not seen no black podcasters number one on this chart, except for the Red Dub podcast. Shout out to them women who always doing amazing things. And the fact that I was the second, it was a big milestone for me. It was a big milestone to be the best podcast on Good Pods, and I just knew that, after that, I knew that this season was going to go a good way. I just had a feeling that this would be a great season. The episode 102, we got my sister back on the show, Arthur Sharice Powell back on the show, which spoke about her children's book, and she got more deeper. And I really enjoyed this episode. And this episode was the first episode went to number one for a guest. She was my first episode to go number one for a guest. So I was like, wow. I was just breaking records this season. The episode 103, we got Aaron King's saying back on the show, which we decided to do a series called The Brother Crossover, where I interviewed him on my show, and he interviewed me on his show, which his show was called King Talk with Aaron Sand. And this was a good crossover episode, So episode 104, we got Purpose, which was pretty much talk about my purpose in life and stuff like that. Episode 105, we got Fear and Anxiety, which was one of my deepest episodes where I had to open up. And I spoke about, my COVID journey where when I was dealing with anxiety, I spoke about, dealing with social anxiety as a kid, and this was a really deep episode. A lot of people loved the episode. A lot of people, when they heard the episode, a lot of people were like, wow, thank you for sharing this episode because I've been through this as well. And I didn't think the episode would make some kind of impact as much as it did, but I'm happy that it did. And I think that everybody was encouraged by this episode. Thank you for listening because this episode was from the heart. This season is where I would really start to get more deeper, and I was comfortable with getting deeper. that when I know that, yeah, I know myself now, and then I'm okay to let my audience know. 'Cause my audience deserve to know the real me, and that was the goal for the season and going forward after that. So episode 106 was a Q&A episode, which was honestly was a filler. Episode 90, episode 107 was the War Games episode with Amakito Sands. Episode 108, Molly Mal came back on the show, and it was an album me and him love, which he also another person where we both love music, and we both love this album by the name of Thriller by Michael Jackson. And it was the 40th anniversary. I felt like it was only right to have him on the show. We talked about the album, which was a really dope conversation. And I love to go news with my bro, Molly Mal. So yeah, we definitely got to do more music episodes in the future. Episode 109, we got Sierra Coco on the show, and she is the former host of the Wet Lounge and the host of the Peaky Sweat podcast. And this was a really good conversation, and I really enjoyed the conversation. Episode 110, we got Jalen on the show, and she is a writer. She is a movie critic, and this was a really good conversation. Pretty much one of many conversations between me and Jalen. And then the year end, and we is going into the year 2023. And of course, we got the 4-year anniversary episode. And then we came back with the Royal Rumble prediction episode with Aaron Quito Sands and Monda Chief Mighty Mal. Episode 112, we got Love is Love 2022. And then episode 113, which was called Why I Never Give Up, which was a deep episode. Honestly, it was a time where during this time, I felt off about myself. I didn't know why. I felt off about myself. I posted on social media 2 podcasters by the name of Big Brother Advice, who got a podcast show called Big Brother Advice, and he a part of the League of King podcast with Willie from Things About Us podcast, and another podcast by the name of What is WTF, Jay Dye. They both hit me up. Jay Dye hit me up saying that to talk about how you feel. Those are usually the best episode. And Big Brother hit me up just saying like, how you doing? Hope everything's all right with you, stuff like that. And I appreciate those 2 for their advice because it really helped me. It really helped me how I feel about this episode. And this episode was a really deep episode, and which was another episode where a lot of people was encouraged by. A lot of people was like, "Thank you for sharing." And I never knew that. One thing about me, I never knew that my personal episode would play a big impact on a lot of people's life. I didn't know that. So when I started sharing the episode, especially on this season, a lot of people were relating to it. And yeah, I didn't know that anything I said was making an impact, especially with everything I went through growing up. I didn't think it was making an impact. And also, I got to take therapy for that too, because going to therapy helped me to really open up on this show as well. So yeah, that was a really deep episode, one of the top 5 episodes on Good Pod. So yeah, that was a really deep episode. So it was a mid-season break, and we decided to bring back a new spin-off show, sort of like into an old spin-off show. I brought back this series called the Top 20 Countdown Show. If you remember, we had a music countdown show, but it was something different. It wasn't movie. It wasn't movie based. It wasn't music based. It was movies. And I had Jalen coming back on the show. We didn't know during this time that it would be a segment, a popular segment as that. But the first episode did really good. We pretty much talk about our top 20 favorite movies of all time. And we didn't know that this was going to be a thing, but it's kind of became a thing. It became a thing. And then episode 115, we got the big WrestleMania prediction episode where we got Aaron Quito Sands, Long Live Chief Mighty Mel. We got Ange from Let's Talk About Podcast and Mighty Mel Boy, 21 Cal the Sus King, which I didn't know at the time that we were going to become a team. But this was a really dope conversation. It was a very fun prediction episode. And I didn't know that this was going to become a thing in the future. Like at all. I didn't know it was going to become a thing. But yeah, I enjoyed this prediction episode. Episode 116, we got Shaquita Johnson on the show. She is the host of Chronicle of Virgo podcast. And this was a really, really dope conversation. I want to say thank you, Shaquita, for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing your story. This was one of my favorite conversations this season, and she is doing amazing things. Shout out to her, and yeah, keep doing your thing, Shaquita. Episode 117, we got Victoria J from 12-3 Talkback, which was also another dope conversation. Another podcast host that doing amazing things. Another podcast host that's always supporting me. Thank you for coming to the show and sharing your story as well. Those two episodes was both my favorite two guests this season because they was honest. They shared their stories and everything. I really enjoyed both of those episodes, and both of them Virgos. Shout out to the Virgos. 118, we got self-doubt, and this episode was a really deep episode because my whole life I dealt with self-doubt, and it still bothered me to this day. I'm not gonna hold you. It still bothered me from time to time during the day, but I decided to talk about it on this episode, and another episode where everybody was inspired by. It was a really deep episode, and yeah. Episode 119, we got Nightlife Memories, pretty much part 2 of the story of Ken the Promoter. And this is one episode that shocked me that done so well. Like, this episode done really well. And I was shocked that it done good and the way it did. And I pretty much update everybody on my status on being a promoter. And this was and I'm happy that I dived more deep into the episode, than I did the first time. But yeah, I enjoyed doing this episode though. Then we had my 36th birthday celebration. And then we got episode 120. Molly Mel back on the show. Talk about his new podcast show. What is the Trilogy podcast? Talk about him being a new father. And many more, Episode 121. We got the ladies of Opinionated Lashley coming to the show. This was a really interesting conversation. A lot of laugh, a lot of serious moments. And this was a really good conversation. Thank you, ladies, for coming to the show. Episode 122, we got Lex London on the show, who is a teacher who do music. This was a fun conversation. I know her for a very long time. Yeah, this was a fun conversation. And the final guest of the season, episode 123, we got Zaya from the Zaya Show on the show. And this was a good conversation. He spoke about the podcast, him being in school, everything he got going on. Now, this dude, this is one hard working dude that I know. Keep doing things there. And then we have the season 6 finale, which was June 26, 2023. The next move, part 2, was pretty much talk about, my next move and everything that happened and stuff like that. And I'm going to have to say that season 6 was one of my favorite seasons of working on. Because it was my comeback season. And I was going through a lot, and I just put all that pain that I went through and put it onto the season, which was a really good season. And I enjoyed the season so much. And even to this day, this is still one of my favorite seasons to this day. So during this time, I didn't really want to take a break. So I decided to start this new spin-off, I wanted to do on more shows because I always do my shows on Sundays, but I wanted to put all my shows on Thursdays as well. And that's when I started this new block called Spin-Off Series Thursday, where the conversation about music was every first Thursday, Date Night Talk Podcast was every second and third Thursday, and the Old School Show was every fourth Thursday. And I started working twice as much. Main series on Sundays and Spin-Off Series Thursdays on Thursdays. So yeah. But then the main series, season 7 premiere, was September 3rd, 2023. And the first episode was Break Us Hope. Pretty much like, I'm back. So let everybody know that I'm back and stuff like that. So then episode 126, we got the Top 20 Countdown Show, Volume 2, with Jalen, where we talk about more of our favorite movies. Episode 127, you all need that little push, which was an inspiring episode that pretty much let you know that you all need that little push. Episode 28, we got the Art of Support, which would pretty much talk more about me supporting people and stuff like that. Not only just the podcast community, but supporting people in general. Because yeah, always been a supportive person, even when people did not support me. Cause I see potential people more than they see in themselves, and I always like to remind people of that. And that was this episode was pretty much about. So, yeah, episode 129. Who was the first guest of the season? We got Miss Raina Fryman Ross, who is the host of Better Call Daddy. This was a really dope conversation. We spoke about the podcast show. We spoke about her being on Jerry Springer show, and many more. This was a really dope conversation, and I really enjoyed the episode. The episode 130, we got the Raw Game prediction episode with myself, Enriquito Saying and Ange. Episode 131, we got Rafael Moran, who is the host of The Geeky Dad After Dark, and The Multiverse Kid. And we talk about his show and everything. This was a really fun conversation. And shout out to him because three guests who went to number one on Good Pies for top 100 episode, which was my sister, Sharice Powell, Victoria J, and Rafael Moran. Those are the only three guests who ever went to number one on Good Pies. So shout out to them for that. I also went number one on his show too when I was on it too. So shout out to that. And then episode 132, Growth, with the official 200 episode of MrGentleman Like the Podcast, which was a really big milestone. So yeah, so that was a really big milestone. And that was pretty much the end of the year episode. So then we had the Miss finale, which was episode 133, the Top 20 Character Show with Jalen, which were our favorite Christmas movies. And then with the year 2024. And we have our 5-year anniversary episode. And I got to take the step back and talk about the 5-year anniversary episode because honestly, the 5-year anniversary episode was supposed to be the last time I do this type of episode, because it was a big milestone. It was, it was a journey, and I told myself I wasn't going to do this type of episode no more because it was a big milestone. But, here we are. But I really enjoyed this milestone doing the show for 5 years. And it was a real journey. And thank you everybody who took the time to listen, share, rate everything for MrGentleman Like the Podcast. And those who are continuing to be on this journey now. So episode 134, we got the Royal Rumble prediction episode with the All-Star Wrestling crew. Aaron Kitoxian, Long Live the Chief Mighty Mel, and 21 Cal the Source King. Then episode 135, we got Chef Ashley A. Torres on the show. And I met her through a mutual friend. We started off on the wrong foot, but we became cool later. And we talk about her being a chef. We talk about her, doing everything. And we even have our first food tasting on the show. You can watch that clip on MrGentleman Like the Podcast TV on YouTube. Episode 136, we got Kathy Mayo on the show. She is the host of Ignite Your Power, the Kathy Mayo podcast. And this was a really, really good conversation. One of my favorite guests this season. One of my 3 favorite guests this season, actually. One of my favorite guests this season. And I really enjoyed this episode. Yeah. Episode 137, we got Love is Love 2024. Episode 138, we got Priscilla Tidy on the show, who is an author, who also got a podcast show, The Unexpected Podcast. And this was also another good conversation that I enjoyed this season. Episode 139, we got Alejandra Carr from the Chit Chatter Show, which is now named the ACMG Digital Podcast. And this was a really good conversation. And she told me about her podcast show, being an entrepreneur. This was a really good conversation. On episode 140, we got Miss Janie Ho on the show. And this was one of my favorite guests this season because she really, really spoke about a lot. She dived into her working at LinkedIn. She dived into working at the Daily News. She dived in on many things. And this conversation was long, but it would really have me intrigued, and I really, really enjoyed the conversation, and she is definitely coming back for the second half of season 8, so look out for her. Episode 141, we got Miss Michelle S on the show, who is the host of Ed Michelle podcast. And this was a really fun conversation. She has a podcast show. She is a comedian, and she made me laugh the whole episode. I'm not gonna hold you. She made me laugh the whole episode. The episode 142, we got Big Red on the show, who is a model, who is an artist, and this was a really deep conversation. She dived into a lot of stuff that's going on in her life, and this was a really deep conversation. And then episode 144, we got the season 7 finale of MrGentleman Like the podcast, The Next Move Part 3. And this will basically talk about everything and what the next move for MrGentleman Like the podcast. And honestly, even though I enjoy working on this season did not done really well. I know that this season, a lot of the people that listen to my show on a daily started listening to the show. I guess people started to say that I was doing too much because I worked doing podcast shows for 2 days a week. And I noticed that the numbers were declining. And yeah, and during this time, it thought to be a lot of changes during this time. Doing a lot of changes. So I decided to take a long break after this. I decided to take a long break to restart the show. I did put out some bonus episodes from here and there. Like I put out the birthday episode, my 37th birthday episode. But then I went to number one. I debuted at number 1 for personal journal chart on Good Pies. But then the weird thing happened. So Spotify, they changed their name to Spotify for podcasters. Then they changed their name again to Spotify for creators. And this change hurt my podcast heavy. It hurt my podcast because I was at 31,000K, but then I lost 5,000 plays. I don't even know how that even happened. I lost 5,000 plays. I lost 5,000 downloads. I'm not sure how that happened, but I lost 5,000 downloads. A lot of stuff that I used to do, and it made the platform more complicated. A lot of my background music is gone. I can't even know my background music. A lot of the format I use for the show is gone. A lot of my old audio was gone. I had to re-record a lot of my audio again. And it was a big change that I had to figure out once I come back, you know. And it was a lot. You know, it was a lot as well. So I decided to take a long break. But it wasn't just because of, you know, the podcast. During this time, I spoke about this on the finale and on the premiere episode, which I'm about to get into. I was dealing with a lot of health issues during this time as well. Back in March, I noticed that I was gaining weight. You know, over the years since 2020, I was gaining weight. But I just thought I was gaining weight, but I didn't think it was nothing serious. So I went to the doctor for, you know, my yearly physical. My yearly physical. I went to the doctor, and I was healthy for the most part, but I noticed my cholesterol level was really high, to the point that it was high risk high. And I didn't notice until I started getting chest pains. When I walked, my legs started to hurt really bad. I would get fat in the face. I didn't notice it, and my weight was really out there. I didn't notice anything. I just thought, you know. But then after I found out from the doctor, I noticed that I had to change my weight. I had to change my you know, everything I went through. I had to change my lifestyle. The diet, I had to change the way I eat. I had to change the way I work out. I had to change the way I walk, be active more, sleep early, and stuff like that. And all that worked. So on the season 8 premiere episode of MrGentleman Like the podcast, allowed me to reintroduce myself. It was September 15th, 2024. I spoke about that. I spoke about, you know, everything I've been through, and I pretty much feel better. You know, I feel more confident. I think everything in my life was slowly getting in place. And I knew that I would go be in a better place. Episode 146, Top 20 Character Show, Volume 4, with Jalen, which were our favorite biopic movies. Episode 147, we got Haley De La Cruz on the show. She is the host of The American Dream in the Eyes of Immigrants, which was my favorite guest this season so far. Because she spoke about a lot of things, her podcast show, her being a podcast coach, spoke about, COVID, mental health, and stuff like that. And she is also a winning podcast host. So I just want to say congrats to you, Haley, for winning your podcast award. That is really big. And keep doing amazing things. Episode 148, we got Miss Brownie Marie on the show, and she is an entrepreneur. She started a dating app called the Fox Hunter Club, and this was a really fun conversation. We also dive into dating in the generation, and this was a really fun conversation. Episode 149, we got the origin of the Mr. Gentleman name, which pretty much talk about how I got the name Mr. Gentleman, like the podcast, and the name of Ken A.K. Mr. Gentleman. Then we took a short break, and then we came back for episode 150, and we got this artist from UK by the name of Anastasia, and she talked about her new journey. She brought us a song called Strength, and this was a good conversation. Episode 151, we got Elijah Rose back on the show to talk about everything that she's been up to and talk about her new books and many more. Episode 52. So episode 52, we got Message to My Women. And as you noticed, today is another thing that happened today, which I didn't acknowledge during the beginning of the episode. Today is the inauguration of, that the guy who's not my president. And during the episode, Message to the Women, it pretty much to speak to all the women who was hurt over, not getting a black woman president, not getting a woman president. And this took to every woman who was impacted by it, especially the black woman, the woman of color, and the woman who was just impacted by the results for the election. And with just me letting them know that I am on your side. I did vote for Kamara as well, because I did not want to see this person back in office, because we know what he did in the first term. So the fact that he back in office, pretty much America didn't learn the lesson on what happened the first time. When this person just represent racism, the person led us to a whole pandemic. The person had a lot of people losing their jobs, a lot of markets falling and stuff like that. And the fact that we got this man back in office, pretty much America did not learn the first time, and we pretty much going backward, because now women lost their rights. Blacks, they're trying to embrace even more blacks, trying to embrace health care and many other things that's important to us that we need. Because he don't care about us. And the fact that, he back in office is just disgusting, And that was this episode was about pretty much the message to all the women that even this thing happened, that I am on your side, and everything is going to be all right. That basically what this episode was about, And the last episode that I'm going to mention is episode 153, the warm-up, which was the end of the year episode, was describing the year 2024. And that's all the episode we done from 2018 to now. And I just want to say thank you everybody who've been riding with me for these 6 years. I know I'm not perfect. I know that I tried my best, to give y'all the best content that I could. But the fact that y'all believe in me and my vision, it really means a lot. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I just also want to shout out to all the podcast appearances that I've been on. Surviving the Journey, Jay Siobhan, Little Bit of Everything with Me, hosted by Angelica, From the Mind of Cece, Miss Cece, TQP Moment, hosted by the Coupon Queen Pen, Our Collaboration Station, hosted by Cynthia, Where Did the Rabbit Go, hosted by Marco, King Talk with Aaron Sands, hosted by Aaron, King Talk Sands, Good Vibes Only, hosted by Felicia Wright, Beautiful Feet Podcast, hosted by Anthony, Wrestling with Faith, hosted by Anthony, Drunken Idiots Podcast, Chronicle of a Virgo, hosted by Shaquita Johnson, Masturbator, hosted by DeAndre Robinson, the Fandalorian podcast. 12-3 Topak, hosted by Victoria J. Star Time podcast, hosted by the Star Rider Rod. The Things About Us podcast, hosted by Willie and Fiona. Chris Gazza, hosted by Kendra. Opinionated Lashes, Sonia, Dawn, Jessica. The Simplest podcast, hosted by Amanda. The Geek Dad podcast, hosted by Raphael. Better Call Daddy podcast, hosted by Raina Freeman Rotz. Michelle podcast, hosted by Michelle S. The J Day podcast, hosted by Jalen. ACAG Digital Podcast, formerly known as Chit Chatter Show, hosted by Alejandro Carr. Thank you to all y'all who had me on the show, and thank you for helping me get out of my comfort zone. Whether it was a fun conversation, it was a deep conversation, or just a conversation that was totally out of pocket. Thank you for having me, and it really means a lot. And thank you everybody who joined me on this journey. If it wasn't for y'all, I wouldn't do this the way I did. So for that, thank y'all. What next for Mr. Gentleman like the podcast? More guests come on the show, more conversation, more deeper conversation, more roundtable discussion, more spin-off shows on the way, a podcast nomination, and a podcast award-winning show. And upgrade equipment, more merch, and many more things to come. I got a lot of things on the way, and I just can't wait for y'all to continue to be on this journey for Mr. Gentleman like the podcast. And for closing remarks, I just want to say, if you want to do something, just go out there and do it. It won't hurt to try. It's going to be people who are not going to be there for you. Not going to be people who are going to support you. It's going to be people who are going to be praying for your downfall because it's you. But if you believe in yourself and believe in your vision, anything is possible. If people don't listen to your show, don't give up because you're not getting the support that you should be getting. That should be a way of you should be going harder. And if the one that you want to support you, that don't mean that you are a failure. Because there's going to be other people who you don't know who will be impacting your story, who will support you, who will be there for you. And if there's something that you want to do, don't give up. Because everything does not happen overnight. Sometimes it takes years for your big break. And then when that big break comes, your life will change forever. So do not give up. And thank you again for joining me on this 6-year journey. And I'll be right back.
Hey, how y'all doing out there? This is Lisa White. Came through to Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast to come and wish my boy Ken a happy anniversary. I can't believe it. It's so fast, right? Well, believe it, man. You've been doing your thing for a whole another year, and I wish you nothing but the best. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep pushing. Keep positive. Keep this alive, and I'm gonna keep supporting you, because that's what I do. One.
Hi, this is Cynthia with the Listen and Learn with Me podcast and the Our Collaboration Station podcast. And I want to wish you, Ken, with the Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle podcast, a happy 6-year anniversary. Best wishes to you. I am extremely, extremely proud of you and how far you have come on this podcast journey over the past 6 years. Thank you for all that you have done for our community. Thank you for having me on your show more than once and also coming on my show as a guest. I wish you all the absolute best as you move forward in this year with producing positive, fun, exciting, and relatable content. All the best to you this year, Ken.
Hey, what's going on? It is your boy Bromar from The Bromar Show, and I just want to wish the Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast a happy 6th anniversary. Keep up the good work. Keep going at it strong. Continue to do what you keep doing, and I hope for the best for the Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast.
Ken, hello, how are you? This is your favorite sister, Sister Chrissy Christ from A Fistful Podcast. It has been an amazing journey to watch you grow 6 years strong, my brother. And I'm so happy for you, and I want to wish you nothing but the best and more years to come as you grow and prosper throughout this podcast journey. And I'm here, and I'm loving it, and I'm amazed and awe and seeing you grow and develop into this entrepreneur and great podcast host. And keep doing your thing. Do not stop. We got this. And guess what? 2025 is our year for podcasting. And happy podversary, my guy, and many, many years to come. Love you.
Oh my gosh. Ken, Mr. Gentleman, congratulations on 6 years of podcasting. Isn't that crazy? Oh my gosh, man. Oh my goodness. 6 years. You know what? What could I say? It's such an incredible milestone. We're 4 more years away from completing 10 years. So congratulations. I'm so proud of you. You've achieved and done so much, and you're still doing it. You're still killing it. So congratulations to you, Ken. I'm so happy, super proud of you, and keep doing what you're doing. It's Angelica here from A Little Bit of Everything with Me podcast, and I hope to be back at the mic very shortly. But now, happy anniversary, happy 6 years to this man right here who's running a cajillion podcasts. It's been a pleasure and amazing to get to know you, and hopefully we're going to meet soon.
Hello, everybody. This is your boy Ken, aka Mr. Gentleman. Now, I am the host of Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast, and this commercial break is brought to you by Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast presents Spinoff Series Thursdays. And Spinoff Series Thursday is the new home for Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast Spinoff Series that brought to you shows like A Conversation About Music Podcast, The Old School Show, and Date Night Talk Podcast. And A Conversation About Music Podcast is a music spin-off series where we talk about anything music, from the current music scene and the old school music scene, where we interview many guests that's in the music industry and artists about their music journey. We have a segment game called The Face Off, which is a versus inspired game, and we have roundtable discussion about variety of music topics. And y'all can check out A Conversation About Music podcast every first Thursday at 12 a.m. Every first Thursday at 12 a.m. Now, the Old School Show that featured myself and the star Roddy Rod is a show where we discuss anything old school, from music, TV shows, movies, and many more. We also bring in guests to join in on the old school conversation. Y'all can check out the Old School Show with myself and the star Roddy Rod every fourth Thursday at 12 a.m. Every fourth Thursday at 12 a.m. And last but not least, we have Date Night Talk Podcast with myself and Miss Vanna B, where we talk about anything relationship related topics like love, dating, relationships, cheating, the good and the bad, and many more. And y'all can check out this spin-off series, Date Night Talk Podcast, every second and third Thursday at 12 p.m. So look out for Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast Presents Spin-off Series Thursday, a conversation about music podcast every first Thursday. The Old School Show with myself and the Star Riding Rod every fourth Thursdays, and Date Night Talk Podcast with myself and Miss Vanna B every second and third Thursdays. And y'all can check out Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast every Sundays for the main series and every Thursday for spin-off series Thursdays. And thank y'all for checking out this commercial break. And now back to your regularly scheduled program. True! I just want to take the time to thank everybody for tuning into this latest episode of Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Thank you to everybody who's been on the journey with me for 6 years. For listening, sharing, hosting, told a friend, got me on the charts, spread the word, brought merch, and anything, everything. For supporting Mr. Gentleman like the podcast, it really means a lot. If you started from the beginning, if you came in late, or if you even still here now, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. If it wasn't for y'all, the show would never happen. If you were inspired by this show in some kind of way, thank you. It really, really means a lot. Y'all trust my vision and y'all really turn it into reality. So thank you, everybody that really took the time to support Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Thank you to all my guests who came on Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast through all 6 years. Thank you for trusting me with your stories. Thank you for all the fun conversation. Thank you for all the crazy conversation. Thank you for everything, man. And all y'all that came on the show, y'all brought the best out of me. And I'm happy to share y'all to the world. And I just want to shout out all my guests who came on with the Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast, all 74 of my guests, name by name. Started by all my guest co-hosts who was a part of the Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast family. The Star Rider Rod, co-host of the Old School Show. Ms. Vanna B, co-host of Date Night Talk Podcast. Jalen, co-host of the Top 20 Countdown Show. My all-star wrestling crew who do the prediction show with me. Aaron, King Talk Sands, host of King Talk with Aaron Sands. Long live the Chief Molly Mal, host of Welcome to the Charity Podcast. And for Let's Talk About It podcast. And 21 Cal, the Source King. Thank y'all for joining me on the journey and bring many fun conversation. Thank you. I also want to shout out to my family members who came on with the Gentleman Like That podcast as a guest. To my sister Tawana, Danielle, and Sharice, to my aunt Rolanda, and my cousin Nana Powell. Thank y'all for coming on the show and sharing amazing conversation and amazing stories. Thank you to all my guests who I actually know in real life, who is also my social media friends. Shout out to Amber. Shout out to the Bronx Boom Boom. Shout out to Elijah Rose. Shout out to Destiny Unique. Shout out to Felicia White. Shout out to Jim Judy White Star. Shout out to Lacey. Shout out to Lexi London. Shout out to Magna. Shout out to Marsha. Shout out to Miss Marty Pod. Shout out to Miss Cece. Shout out to Mook Dollars. Shout out to Naya. Shout out to Pam. Shout out to Queen Janae. Shout out to Shadiqua. Shout out to Sierra Coco. Shout out to Sam. Shout out to Trophy T. Shout out to Therese from Kingdom Chat Podcast. Shout out to Bonabello. Shout out to Twin Turbo B. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Brownie Marie. Shout out to Chef Ashley A. Torres. Shout out to Janie Ho for coming on the show. Thank y'all for taking the time and sharing your stories. It really means a lot. I want to take the time to thank you to the core family who've been a guest on Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Thank you to Angelica from A Little Bit of Everything With Me. Thank you to Coupon Queen Pen for CQP Moments. Shout out to Anna K. Hackerson from For Change Be Bold Podcast. Shout out to Anthony from the Beautiful Feet Podcast and Wrestling with Faith Podcast. Shout out to Bromar from the Bromar Show. Shout out to Cynthia from our collaboration station. Shout out to Gia Daxon from She Effing Did That. For Decon Party from Ciderette Podcast. Shout out to Jay Siobhan from Surviving the Journey. Shout out to Michelle Miller from Mentors on the Mic. Shout out to Paige from the Badass Fabulous Podcast. And thank y'all for coming on the show and having really dope conversation. Thank you to my podcast friends who was a guest on Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Shout out to Chrissy Christ from Fistful Podcast. Shout out to Shaquita Johnson from Chronicles of a Virgo. Shout out to Victoria J from 12-3 Talkback. Shout out to Zaya from the Zaya Show. Shout out to Rosie, the Haitian Mama from the Mama's Life Podcast. Shout out to Raphael Moran from the Giggy Dad After Dark, and the Multiverse Kids. Shout out to Raina Freeman Ross from Better Call Daddy Podcast. Shout out to Penelope Rose from All and Water Podcast. Shout out to Natalie Armstrong. Shout out to Opinionated Lashes, Jessica, Sonia, and Dawn Marie. Shout out to Brianna Lightfoot Smith from Black Girl with Purpose. Shout out to Amanda from Dating Will Be the Death of Me. Shout out to Kathy Mal from the Ignite Your Power, the Kathy Mal Podcast. Shout out to Haley De La Cruz from the American Dreams in the Eyes of Immigrants. Shout out to Michelle S. from It Michelle Podcast. Shout out to Alejandra Carr from the ACMG Digital Podcast. And shout out to Priscilla Toddy from the Unexpected Podcast. Thank y'all to my podcast friends who came on with the Gentleman Like the Podcast as a guest. And also thank you for supporting me during this journey as well. Also, shout out to everybody who came along the journey, along the way as a guest. Shout out to Banger Official. Shout out to Be Wise. Shout out to Hazel Eyed Rose. Shout out to Kendra Crunk. Shout out to Jonathan Harris. Shout out to Mariah. Shout out to Big Red. And shout out to Anastasia for coming on the show. Thank you to all my guests that came on with the Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast. It really means a lot. And y'all are definitely a part of the journey because y'all was a guest on the show. So thank y'all for sharing your story to the world and showing y'all talents to the world because all y'all is so dope. I know all y'all gonna do big things. All y'all is already doing big things. I know big things are coming for all of y'all. So once again, thank y'all for coming on with the Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Y'all more just guests to me. Y'all are just family. So shout out to y'all. Thank you. Also, I want to shout out to all of my other podcast friends who supported Mr. Gentleman Like the Podcast through the 6 years in some kind of way, who haven't been a guest on the show yet. But hopefully in the future, I will have y'all as a guest, but y'all also been a part of the journey and supported me as well. And I want to give y'all a shout out as well. Shout out to the Lighthouse Within. Shout out to the Things About Us podcast. Shout out to the Red Dove podcast. Shout out to the League of Kings podcast. Shout out to Pedal of Support podcast. Shout out to Wild Night with Rocky. Shout out to Hippo Wellness podcast. Shout out to Where Did the Grown Woman Play podcast. Shout out to Visit Vegas Places with Coral. Shout out to Conversation with Toy podcast. Shout out to Jalisa Says podcast. Shout out to Confidence Cafe podcast. Shout out to My Surviving Voice, the podcast. Shout out to Conversation with Kinfolk podcast. Shout out to My Weekly Mixtape. Shout out to Unpacking the Box podcast. Shout out to Boom Generation. Shout out to Bear in Front podcast. Shout out to China In podcast. Shout out to Lady Adana This podcast. Shout out to The Flaky Foodie. Shout out to Fizz Biz. Shout out to Just Get Hired. Shout out to Small Town USA. Shout out to Lady Pitch. Shout out to Lavender Listening Podcast. Shout out to Above the Ring Podcast. Shout out to How Did Coronavirus Save My Life Podcast. Shout out to Catch These Vibes. Shout out to The Crime Diners. Shout out to Is Marriage Worth It Podcast. Shout out to Open Up Podcast. Shout out to High Tea with Bell, Kels, and Kay. Shout out to I Explain It Later podcast with Big Smash. Shout out to the Redefining Wellness podcast. Shout out to Boniqua Talk podcast. Shout out to Big Brother Advice. Shout out to Bo Talk with Joe. Shout out to the Candy Carol podcast. And shout out to every other podcast in the Co-op family. And shout out to the Unfiltered Studio podcast. And every podcast that I didn't mention, thank y'all for showing love by listening, sharing, reviewing, telling a friend, everything. It really means a lot. Thank you for being a part of the journey. I am grateful and thankful for sharing this show to the world. And once again, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And y'all already know where y'all can listen to the Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast every Sunday at 12 a.m. and every Thursday was Spin-off Series Thursday, where we have shows like a conversation about music podcast every first Thursday at 12 p.m., Date Night Talk podcast with myself and Miss Vanna B every second and third Thursday at 12 p.m., and the Old School Show with myself and the Star Rider Ride every fourth Thursday. I do got a special announcement about Spin-off Series Thursday show. We all got new seasons of all of the Spin-off Series Thursday show. A conversation about music podcast will be returning in May of 2025. Season 3 of a conversation about music podcast, May 2025. Date Night Talk podcast with myself and Mr. Vanna B. Season 3 will be February 20th, 2025. Season 3 of Date Night Talk with myself and Mr. Vanna B. February 20th, 2025. And the Old School Show with myself and the Star Rider Ride, Season 4, June 2025. Season 4 of the Old School Show with myself and the Star Rider Ride, June 2024. So look out and save those dates for new season of Spin-off Series Thursday shows. Thursday night, we back, baby. And you can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Good Pods, and many more. Y'all can rate the show 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, and Podchasers. The more y'all rate the show, the more people know about Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast. If you want to be guests on Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast, send me a bio about yourself and everything that you do to my email, KenYPGEMT@gmail.com, or hit me up on social media, Ken_Mr. Gentleman. I repeat, Ken, KEN _Mr. MR Gentleman, GENTLEMAN, and we can set something up. I am still looking for guests for second half of season 8 and season 9 of Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, Ken, aka Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube, Ken, aka Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast. You can also check me out on the Premier Voice Podcast with myself, Aaron Keatok Sands, the Star Riding Rod, Lord of the Chief Mighty Mal, every Wednesdays at 12 p.m. You can check out the Premier Voice Podcast every Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Check out other shows in the Premier Podverse. Check out all episodes of King Talk with Aaron Sands, hosted by Aaron King Talk Sands. You can check out all episodes right now, all podcast platforms. Look out for his new show, After Hours with Aaron Sands, coming soon. Also, check out all episodes of Star Time Podcast, hosted by the Star Writer Ride. All episodes is available right now. And check out Welcome to a Trilogy, hosted by Long Live the Chief Mighty Mal. New episodes of Welcome to the Trilogy coming real soon. Listen and support all shows in the Premier Podverse. Also, check me out on. You can also check me out on Good Pods. Ken, Mr. Gentleman. Y'all already know Good Pods cater to many independent podcasters. You can see what everybody listens to. We can rate each other's shows, and we have the charts. And at this time, it's time for Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Achievement, where we spotlight everything Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast is doing. And as of right now, we're not currently on the charts, but while we was on break, we was back number one for Society and Culture. And we were also back number one twice for Personal Journal. So thank you everybody who continues to listen and support Mr. Gentleman like that podcast while we on break. Thank you for continuing to listen and support Mr. Gentleman like that podcast while we on break. It really means a lot. Also, shout out to Feed Spot. We also was on their charts for top 35 Gentleman podcast, and Mr. Gentleman like that podcast was number 2 on that list. So shout out to Feed Spot for getting us on the chart. You know, it really means a lot. Shout out to y'all and thank y'all. Thank y'all. And thank you to everybody who listened to Mr. Gentleman like that podcast on all platforms. It really means a lot. And continue to support us. Thank you. And of course, check out the official website of Mr. Gentleman like that podcast, www.realmrgentlemanlikethatpodcast.com. You can check out every episode of Mr. Gentleman like that podcast. You can watch all videos of Mr. Gentleman like that podcast, from the audio version from the Gentleman Fact Quote of the Day, from Mr. Gentleman like that podcast TV, and many more. You can check out every guest who's been on Mr. Gentleman like that podcast. All 74 guests, and we having more guests in the second half of season 8. Check out every guest appearance that I've been on. We also got more guest appearances on the way as well. And check out the official merch store of Mr. Gentleman like that podcast, www.tpublic.com. Just search Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Store. We have shirts, hoodies, mugs, masks, and many more. Check out the official merch store so we could upgrade your listening experiences. So check out the official merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Store. And check out the official website of Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast, www.realmrgentlemanlikethatpodcast.com. Once again, thank you everybody for tuning into this latest episode of Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Thank you for celebrating 6 years of Mr. Gentleman like that podcast with me. And like I said, I've been saying this whole episode, it really, really means a lot. Thank you once again. Next week, we will be back on our regularly scheduled program. And we have another new episode of Mr. Gentleman like that podcast. Have a good day or night while you're listening to this episode.
My name is Jailan Salah from the J Days podcast. Happy 6-year anniversary to Gentleman Lifestyle podcast. I am so proud of you, my dear friend Kenny, for all the hard work you have put, all the amazing stories, all the great guests. You are always on my mind, and I always look up to you and feel so proud and inspired to have you as a friend. May you have your next 100-year anniversary for the Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle podcast, and we can always work and create together and make great art.
This is Roddy Rod, the host of the show Star Time Podcast. And I want to give a big shout out to 6 years. Happy 6 years to Ken, aka Mr. Gentleman podcast show, Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Yeah.
This is Shar Bliss, and I want to wish Ken the Gentleman a happy anniversary.